Many artists avoid learning perspective because it can be intimidating, dull, or both. In this series, we're going to break it down into simple concepts and do some fun exercises that'll help you master perspective. Hey, welcome to the channel. My name is Tyler. Your name is Angel?
Angle.
Welcome back to the perspective series. Today we're going to be looking at 2-point perspective. As a recap of the last episode, we looked at 1-point perspective, where we learned about the horizon line, which is where the ground plane meets the sky, the vanishing point, which is a point on the horizon line where parallel lines in perspective will converge. We also looked at using the letter X to subdivide planes, the concept of foreshortening, and we drew a room in 1-point perspective. If you missed all that and it sounds confusing as hell, go check out that video. Today we're building on that with 2-point perspective, and basically we just add a second vanishing point on the horizon line. In 1 point, we always had one face or plane of the box facing us directly, which meant that all of our horizontal and vertical lines were perfectly straight and parallel. In 2-point perspective, our vertical lines are still perfectly vertical, but now our horizontal lines are converging back to a second vanishing point. So instead of looking at a face of a box, we're looking at the corner. And we see two side faces, which are both now in perspective. I mentioned I think of train tracks when thinking of 1-point perspective. With 2-point, I think of standing at an intersection, looking across the intersection to the opposite corner. The lines going back into perspective are traveling down the two streets, going back to two different vanishing points. Meanwhile, we're looking at the corners of buildings and cars and stuff. So it starts off the same. Draw a horizon line and put down two vanishing points on that line now. Keep them fairly far apart from each other, and I'll explain why later. Now draw a vertical line somewhere. This will be the leading edge of a box. Now draw lines from the top and the bottom of that line back to each of the vanishing points. Now we're looking at two walls going back in space. Let's draw a vertical line somewhere to show the end of one side of the box. Now we draw lines back to the vanishing point. Do the same thing on the other side, and we'll see the whole box, and everything should line up. If the corners aren't lining up quite right, something went wrong and one of our lines is probably a little off somewhere. Do this a whole bunch, draw a bunch of boxes in this scene. Again, anything below the horizon line we're looking down at, so we'll see the top side of the box. Anything above the horizon we're looking up at, so we'll see the bottom of the box. Anything going through the horizon, we don't really see either the top or the bottom. So this is a great exercise and you can end here if you want, but if you're ready for more, let's look at a more complex concept and the next exercise. So now that we're looking at 2-point perspective, it's a good time to introduce the idea of camera lenses. Don't run away. It can be complex, but today we're going to keep it really simple. You don't actually have to know what camera lenses you're using. Basically, as soon as we sketch or paint something, we're technically looking at it as if through the lens of a camera. All you have to know is, if your vanishing points are pretty close together, the parallel lines that are going back in space, or your perspective lines, are going to converge more quickly, and you're going to get a much more extreme view, and will feel a lot more into action. But things will also start to distort quite quickly. This is like using a wide lens, like a 20mm lens. If your vanishing points are far away from each other, your perspective lines are going to converge more slowly. You see this a lot in large vista landscape shots. This is using a long lens. Here's a comparison, and you can see that the wide lens wraps around more, but things distort more quickly, while a long lens flattens it out more. If we look at a cube in Blender, we can see how distorted the cube gets with a wide lens, like a 10mm, and we can see how close the vanishing points are. If we change the lens to a 400mm, the cube gets less distorted, and we can see how slow the convergence of the perspective is. So for now, all you have to know is if your vanishing points are closer together, you'll get more distortion. If their vanishing points are further away from one another, you get less distortion. Last video, you drew a room from your house. This time we're going to draw a different room from your house, but this time in 2-point perspective. The reason for this is you should know the room pretty well, and you can also go look at it if you need to compare sizes and proportions of things in the room. So let's put in a horizon line, and this time we'll do two vanishing points. Now, I don't want my vanishing points getting too close together for this, so I'm going to frame my image smaller than my Photoshop canvas. So I'm working with a larger Photoshop canvas so that I can see my vanishing points, but the scene I'm going to be doing is smaller, which effectively makes my vanishing points outside of my scene. In the next video, I'll show you how to plot vanishing points that are completely outside of your canvas. So let's determine where our floor is. We'll build out a rectangle here. Bring the corner of the walls up and determine where the back corner will come up, and that'll tell us the height of the back two walls. Now, like we did in 1-point perspective, we're going to treat this like a floor plan of a house, which will allow us to place the objects as just flat rectangles on the floor. And this lets us compare the size of one object to another, like the size of a bed to a desk, let's say. Remember that foreshortening will make the back half of our room appear smaller, and you can find the foreshortened halfway points of the room by drawing an X through the floor from corner to corner. The center of the X will give you your halfway points. So I'm just making up some kind of living room, but you can look at a room in your house and you can compare the sizes of objects from one to another. Let's say there's a couch on this wall and it takes up most of the wall. Now let's say there's a coffee table in the center of the room. Here we can use the couch as a comparison. Let's look at the width of the couch, and if we say the coffee table is going to be a little bit less wide, we can bring the points in. Now carry these lines over, and now we have the width of our coffee table. Again, I'm just guessing here, but the idea is to get you used to sketching in perspective, so if our proportions are off a little bit, I don't think that's the end of the world. We'll fill out the back wall here with some bookshelves and maybe a desk. Now, I said this last time too, notice that everything falls on this grid, sort of like a chessboard, and all of our objects are facing either this way or this way. Everything is aligned perfectly to the walls. You might have a chair or something that doesn't sit nicely in this grid, like if it's in a corner at a 45-degree angle. For now, just turn it so that it fits perfectly in the grid. We'll look at how to rotate objects in another video. Once we have our floor plan, we can project everything upwards and figure out the heights. We can divide the wall in two if we need, and we can divide that again. So let's say the height of the couch is a little bit lower than the quarter point of the wall. Now do the same for all of the other objects in the room, just bringing up the heights compared to the walls. So because all the measuring can get a little messy, you can plot out the different objects on different layers, and then you can show and hide the layers as needed. If you're doing this with paper and pen, just lay in your measurement lines very, very lightly with your ballpoint pen. Now what I'm doing is I've brought down the opacity of all my measurement layers, and I'm sketching over the top to make it feel a little bit more organic, less stiff, and just making everything look a little bit more clear. If doing a room like this is overwhelming to you, you can stick with the boxes exercise. And if your comfort level is somewhere in between, you can check out my Putting Fun in the Fundamentals video, where we turn boxes into simple objects like amplifiers. It's a nice step up from the boxes, and it's easier than a full room if this is intimidating. And there you go, you've drawn a room in 2-point perspective. So that'll do it for 2-point perspective. I hope you had some fun. In the next video, we're going to look at how to plot perspective even when the vanishing points are off the page. I'll show you both legitimate ways to do that, and then also some shortcuts and hacks on how to do it more quickly. I also created a perspective and composition brush set, which you can get for free on Gumroad. The link will be in the description. As always, thank you for watching. Be good to one another, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.